Did everyone get enough food and drinks? Okay. Feel welcome at any time tonight to go to the back to get some more dessert, appetizers, all our finger foods, and our drinks and the drinks. Is anyone here tonight here for the very first time?
Oh, sure.
Welcome to date night. Is anyone here tonight celebrate an anniversary in February? Do you have any anniversaries this month? Okay. March? January? You were in January? Was there anyone in January? Yeah. Oh. April? Any anniversaries in April?
Is anybody married?
That's a good one. Do we have any engaged couples here tonight? Whoa. Okay, so what we're going to do real quick is raise your hand again if you're engaged. We have a little gift for you. Summer, can you help me give one to everyone that's engaged? This is the book, The 21 Undeniable Secrets of Marriage. So, is anyone at Nativity for the first time this evening? Okay, so everyone knows that the restrooms are right out this door to the left-hand side. Oh, you guys hear the music?
Yeah.
It's the church.
Is it coming from your computer?
Oh, it's unplugged. There you go. Oh, I was like, oh, we have church music. So before we officially begin this evening, if you've been to a date night before, you know we do door prizes. There's nothing under your chairs. So I know some of you come in and you look underneath the chairs. There's nothing under there. But we're gonna start big this evening. So everyone received a prayer card when they came in. Look at your prayer cards and see if there's a blue heart on it. A blue heart. So in the top right-hand corner. Someone go. Yeah, that's you. Come on up. You get a gift. You're welcome. All right, so now we're going to go big. Does anyone here feel like they kind of forget about St. Valentine's Day each year? Do we have anyone here? Anyone brave? Doesn't have to raise their hand. They kind of forget about the day until it's Valentine's Day. Do we have anyone here that hasn't even thought about what they're going to do yet for Valentine's Day? Okay. So I saw the first hand go up right here. So you're gonna celebrate in a big way this year. This is your Valentine's card. Yeah, and it wasn't it was a me. So that was just a little fun one that we wanted to kick off tonight. So we welcome Deacon Peter this evening and Father Bob. And so without further ado, Father Bob's going to come up and he's going to give us the opening prayer and introduce our speakers.
Thanks, Jennifer. And we have a wonderful director of our Marriage Enrichment Ministry, Jennifer Sturgeon, and she's supported by a lot of people, a team of married couples that assist her, but also her husband, Mark, supports. And Mark is here. They're wedding coordinators at weddings and come for the rehearsal and the day of the wedding to make sure everything goes smoothly. So thanks for all you do. And Mark, thanks for supporting Jennifer. It's been great. You get honorable mention, Mark. Yeah, that's great. Well, let us, thanks everyone for coming. it's so much fun for me as a single male priest to go to date nights, with all of you. Yeah, thanks for inviting me in. And also Deacon Peter too. So we enjoy it. But we welcome all the married couples and those that are engaged too as you prepare for your wedding day.
Is that a good catch, Father?
A good catch. A great catch. Oh, you listened to the homily tonight. I thought you were sleeping. Good. Well, let's just ask God's blessings. Let us pray in the name of the Father, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Dear God, we thank you for your love and care for us and friendship in our lives and the abundant blessings you give to us each day. Thank you for our vocations of love to marriage, to the beautiful vocation to be a spouse, a husband and wife, and then, God willing, a mother and father. Such a profound, powerful experience in life. So bless these married couples and their children and grandchildren and families. Bless those who are preparing for marriage. Fill their hearts with peace and the assurance that, dear God, you will be with them every day of their married life. Bless our gathering tonight. We thank you for Ben and Sandi Glass, who are our guest speakers, and their beautiful marriage and their family that they'll be able to share, and their wonderful words of encouragement that they've shared with so many people. Bless the food that we share and the drink together, and fill our hearts this night with your peace. Bring healing to those in our parish who, and in our community and world, who did not find this day to be easy or their burden to be light. May we, through our kindness and compassion and generosity, support them. We ask this through Christ our Lord. Amen. The Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Amen. Good. So 4.5 years ago, God gave me a really kind of special gift. I signed up to do CrossFit at a local gym in Burke and met a lot of great people, and one of them was Ben Glass. And we went to the same session. Was it 5 o'clock session? 5 a.m. or 5:30 session in the morning. Yeah. And we were in the same division, like the Masters division, we played and competed in. But I met in Ben someone kind of really remarkable. Not only he's a great athlete, and he puts out a great effort, a lot of dedication and discipline, pushes himself, but a great competitive spirit, but also a beautiful spirit of encouragement for others. And Ben is the type of person that wherever he's at, he wants to make that place better because he was there. Yeah, so he invited me out to get a coffee one morning, a Saturday morning after CrossFit, and we went and began to share about his family, his marriage to Sandi, and his family, and his involvement in his church, and the Abiding Presence Lutheran Church nearby, and about their children. They had numerous children, they had adopted children into their families, and Ben is also a very successful lawyer with Ben Glass Law. So I was just inspired, and I said to him then, I said, I want to have you and Sandi come to Nativity and share your story. Then the pandemic hit, and we had to delay that, but I think when we started coming out of the pandemic, I called Ben up and said, Ben, I want to meet with you, and I invited him again to come, and he said he would. And so tonight's the night. Thank you, Sandi and Ben, for being here. Sandi and Ben just celebrated 40 years of marriage this past summer. They have 9 children, 5 by birth and 4 through adoption. They're grandparents to 5 children with 2 more babies expected this spring. So their marriage is a very fruitful vine. They met at William and Mary. Ben was there on a soccer scholarship. Great athlete, I said. And he graduated in 1980 with his BA in government and philosophy, and then later graduated from George Mason Law School in 1983. And now he runs Ben Glass Law, which focuses on personal injury and long-term disabilities. And then Sandi graduated from William and Mary, where they met in psychology and the fine arts. And besides managing a large household, Sandi is very involved with mentoring parents who are on the foster care or adoption journey. She's also the bookkeeper for Ben Glass Law, which is great. Great teamwork there and partnership. Ben is a practicing attorney, a business coach to lawyers across the country, and he's a high school youth soccer referee. That's our Spanish Mass, being live streamed. And we'll be able to shut that off, I think. Yeah. Bienvenidos. So, ¿Cómo está? So, Ben, in his refereeing, he really encourages respect, sportsmanship among our high school teenagers. So he's a referee for high schools, and he did something really creative. He noticed that it was kind of getting out of hand, the disrespect, and so he challenged every high school soccer team and said, if you go the whole season, your high school soccer team goes the whole season without someone on the team being thrown out for being disrespectful or using bad language, I will make a $500 donation to your athletic department. And they stepped up. They stepped up and did it. And there were 3 or 4 schools, I think, that achieved that. And it was just an opportunity to change the culture and address something important. Ben Glass also invited local pastors, other Christian faiths too, and I got invited to come to Ben Glass Law so that they could share their principles that have brought success to them with pastors in a local church, so we could use some of those same principles in sharing the gospel of Jesus Christ with others. And I attended. It was really neat. They gave us lunch and just gave us a great day. And so that was so thoughtful and a way of living out your faith in your practice. So they're here to share some ideas about what raising 9 children has taught them about maintaining a strong and healthy marriage, and to tell us how they can do all those things and find great happiness in doing it. So it's a real honor for me to welcome Ben and Sandi Glass. Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Bob. So every once in a while, you'll see on the news, or I think it was a recent video on YouTube about some car's in an accident and some guy comes along and lifts the car up to save the person under it, right? Well, that could be him. That guy can deadlift a car. He is really, don't let him fool you. He'll come to the gym and he says, how you doing? How you doing? Because when I met him, I just knew him firsthand. What do you do in your real life? He goes, I'm the head priest over at Nativity. Oh, that's pretty cool. Let's go have some coffee. We've got some connections. But he'll come to the gym and go, my shoulder's a little cranky, my hip's a little cranky. Don't believe that stuff. Don't ever play golf or anything with this guy because he'll try to sucker you in. So we have, as you heard, we have 9 children, and it's been a journey, and it still is a journey. And we've learned a ton. And one of the things you'll hear tonight, so how many people you have children, right? Because we saw them married, right? Okay, good. One of the things you'll learn tonight is that halfway, 60% through our journey, we discovered that everything we thought we knew about parenting wasn't working anymore. And we had to completely change the way we parented. I mean, completely change the way we parented as we began on the adoption process. For our biological kids, the only time we ever had to go to the schools was for the PTA back to school night, right? I mean, we knew school by initials like GT and IB and things like that. And then in the change, we came on a first name basis with the whole administration of every school my kids go to, right? We learned about IEPs and what's the one with the number? The 504 plans and all of that stuff. And so it's been a journey. But what is interesting, what we'll talk about a little bit tonight is how the learning in raising children from hard places has improved the way 40 years in, right? And really we've known each other for about 43 years or so. Has really improved the way that we communicate. And so we have some ideas about that. So let me give you, Father Bob mentioned, let me give you a little context for what we're going to talk about and who we are. Yes, we met at William & Mary. Sandi was there studying psychology and fine arts. I was there to play soccer, right? I was fortunate. I grew up in Northern Virginia. I went to TJ when you had to be good at everything, not just science and math, and got to play with a lot of really good players, and so got to go to William & Mary on a partial scholarship. I was a year ahead of her. We met really the second semester of her freshman year. We fell in love, right? We're 19, 18 years old. We fell in love. She was about the fourth woman I had dated, right? So we were both very shy. And falling in love for me, was a very scary thing. So I decided we were going to break up after the first semester we've been together. And she didn't let me. She didn't let me break up. So we were married. I graduated, came up here to George Mason, to law school, which is a campus in Arlington, and it had just got its ABA accreditation. So one of the things we may get to tonight is talking about, people always want to know, like, about college, and like they get so worried, and their kids in kindergarten, like, what college is she going to go to? I don't know. We've sent 7 kids to 6 different Virginia universities. They've all been the right university for the right kid. I went to a law school that was just opening its doors in a converted old shopping center, right? And, I've had a fairly successful run at it. So we can talk about that. So we got married after my first year of law school. It was sort of right after Sandi graduated. Moved up here. We had nothing. Our oldest child, our first child, Brian, was born in between graduating from law school in May of 1983 and learning that I had passed the bar in October. So we had no money. We lived in a little apartment. I had no guarantee of a job because I had not yet passed the bar. And Brian's born. And so every 3 years after that, for three more cycles, we had a baby, right? So we had boy, girl, yeah, and a dog. And at that point, we said, this is a pretty cool life. We got a big family. Everything is set. Like, we could predict when we would be empty nesters. We could predict how much it would cost to send 4 kids to college. We would know when we would have some time to ourselves, right? When the kids were up and out of the house. We had a plan for our life. And what is that they say when, you tell God your plan, and God laughs a bit, and, all right. So after 4 children and a dog, Sandi starts to get the call, the feeling, the sense that we should adopt. I don't know where that came from. She can talk to you about it. And I said, my response was, you're crazy. We have 4 kids and a dog. Our life is set. We can predict when we're going to be empty nesters, how much college is going to cost. What are you talking about? Like, that's crazy. And so I was able to squelch that for a while. She'll get teeth. Always be careful when somebody else is speaking after you, right? Because they're gonna fix the story. 7 years after our 4th was born, we're walking around the block. I can point to the exact spot. We're walking in one evening, and she says, "I'm pregnant." Now, we have different memories of what my response to that was. But our youngest, Matt, who will graduate from Virginia Tech in May, was born 8 years after our next youngest was born. And so now we got a bigger family. I still think, she says, that we're called to adopt. I said, I told you before, you're crazy. We now have a bigger family. We're going to be a longer time before we're empty nesters. It's going to cost more to send all these kids to college. Like, there's no room here. We probably had 2 dogs by now. Our lives changed almost exactly 20 years ago. And I've told this story hundreds of times, and I cry every time I tell it. And we debated like who would tell this part of the story. In March of 2002, our daughter Caitlin's a junior, I think, in high school. She's now a Lutheran pastor, but she was not on that course at that time. She had no, but again, like your plan, God's plans, no inkling that she would pursue a religious life. And she says, hey, so my friends and I were going to a Christian concert, Stephen Curtis Chapman. Is anybody here a Stephen Curtis Chapman fan? Do you know what I'm talking about? All right. So at that time, we did not know anything about Christian music, Christian bands. Sandi will tell you she thought, how long could that concert be? 45 minutes. Like, what can we do? So on March 8th, Friday, March 8th, 2002, we go down to Hilton Memorial Chapel, watch Stephen Kerr's sermon. We don't know what we're in for. And that night, our lives changed. Because I heard the call that night. And on Sunday, I went to our pastor at that time at Abiding Presence. And I said, it's Tom Bailey. And I said, Tom, I don't know if you've ever actually had a God experience. Not God-inspired, not like a good idea, but an experience where you feel that God has actually spoken to you and directed you, asked you, called you to do something. Stephen Kerr's chaplain is famous, I did not know that at the time, famous for advocating for, at that time he was advocating to support children around the world who did not have families. And really they were just asking for dollars. The concert was unbelievable. And, you know, really I'm sitting there in the upper deck of Hilton Memorial just weeping. And my heart changed that night. And I said yes. 18 months later, we're in Beijing, adopting our first adopted child, Kevin, who at that time was 18 months old. So I'm going to let Sandi sort of pick up the story here. Did I get to the right part where we're doing the switch off? Like, we spent hours preparing, like, what the switch offs are for this stuff. The hardest thing.
Well, Ben is the orator in our family, so I'm not going to walk around. I'm going to read my note cards, and I'm going to hope I remember everything I want to say. But after Ben had his awakening, we didn't like jump right into it, because now that I could, I was scared to death to move forward with it. So we prayed a lot. It's probably, I probably shouldn't admit this, but probably the only time in our lives that we've prayed together for direction from God. And God continued to give us direction, and we continued to try to ignore it. One Sunday morning, we made a list, a pros and a cons list of adopting. And one thing that was on that list was, well, we'll never have sibling rivalry if we don't adopt, because they're 8 years apart. They won't fight, right? That time our son was 2. I'm glad that that wasn't a reason we didn't adopt, because they fought. I mean, they just fought. So we had this list, pros and cons, and we go to church that day, and our pastor does this sermon that talks about what would you do if you knew you could not fail. He even talked about people make these lists about why they can't do stuff, and you know, so here God was talking directly to us again.
We're sitting in the front row crying. It was unbelievable, because he had no idea that we were in this process, and had created this, literally a line drawn down the middle of the page.
Yeah. And Ben usually can't tell either of those stories, the Stephen Kerr's chaplain or this one, without crying, so he must have been practicing. Well, you'd think when God speaks to you like that, you'd get right on it. That didn't happen either, because I was afraid. Fear is a big, huge stumbling block to God's call. And I thought, we went to different adoption events and to information sessions, and I thought, well, everybody here is just smarter, braver, more courageous than I am, because they're doing it, and I'm afraid. Until we heard somebody get up on the stage and talk about how afraid they were before they went to adopt. And that changed my heart. I thought, well, okay, if you can do it, I guess maybe I can do it too. It's one reason we think it's so important to tell your stories. It may not be the same story we have, it probably isn't, but there's a story that you have in your life that will help somebody else through whatever they happen to be going through. So, after many months of searching for our son, we found him, as Ben said, in China. Talk about fear. I have to get on an airplane, leave my 5 children behind, to go get one child that I have never met all the way around the world. And I lost a lot of sleep, I lost a lot of weight, I was very upset. And
we were both getting on that airplane, and you know, the fear of, gee, what happens if?
And Ben, one day, he said, if you're going to be so upset about this, maybe we just shouldn't go. And I'm like, okay, maybe you're right. He went upstairs to get a shower and came down and he said, if you can't go, Caitlin and I will go and bring you home. Okay, the gauntlet's been thrown. I guess I'm getting on that plane. And while we were on that plane, it's a long way to China. 13 hours in a plane makes you realize how big our world is. And I'm on that plane going, really, God? You couldn't have found us somebody closer? In the 20 years since, well, I guess it's been 18 years since that, I've asked a lot of really God questions. So as Ben said, 20 years ago, well, it was 2003, we went to bring Kevin home. We brought home a tiny 18-month-old that couldn't walk, was very floppy, and had an unrepaired cleft lip and palate. 3 years later, we brought home a spunky 6-year-old named Emma. In 2010, so it was 4 years later, we brought home 2 very brave children, Leah, who was 11, and David, who was 12, who left everything they knew behind to get on a plane with strangers. Today, that 18-month-old is 20 years old, as Ben said, and has an alphabet soup of diagnoses behind his name because of his early time in an orphanage. But he's got a sweet soul and a kind heart and would do anything you asked him to do. Our other children are, right now, the 5 youngest are 20, 21, 22, 23, and 24. That makes it easy. Let's see. So Matthew, who started all this, is right smack dab in the middle of the other.
He started, he's the youngest biological.
He's the youngest
child.
biological child, which he did start it. If he hadn't come along, we wouldn't probably
We're stuck to the plan.
this journey. Right, we would have.
I mean, I remember, I did get better, because I remember that day coming home and Sandy's on the computer, and between the time we adopted Kevin and the time we adopted David and Leah, who, they were 12 and 11, there was a number of years, and so with Kevin, there was photographs and stuff. Now she's like, come over here, look at these teenagers on this video. There was a group that was advocating for the adoption of older children, because in China, by the time, if you turn 14, you can't be adopted. You'll always be a part of the social welfare system. Your ID card says you're, you have no parents, right? And wasn't a good thing then. Of course, today is probably much harder. But I got better, because I'm like, whatever, okay, that's good, let's go do it.
Okay, so let me tell them where they are now.
Go ahead.
Emma is 21. She is a beautiful young lady studying neuroscience at Virginia Tech, who to this day questions her worth. Our 22-year-old is Matthew, as we said. He's our bio kid, and he's a great kid that's been a great brother to all of them. Leah and David are 23 and 24 now. Leah is the younger one, and she is a dog groomer, lives at home, and she makes good money, really good money for having not gone to college. And she saves every penny because she's afraid that she one day is going to be homeless and not have a family. And David is 24, and he just graduated from George Mason. He's working at Wegmans now as he awaits his real job to finish processing him. And he's the nicest, kindest, most helpful kid you'd ever want to meet, who still has to sit at the table to see the door so he can be aware if something's going to come in that he should be afraid of. So all that to say, and then we also have bio kids. Our first generation, we have a lawyer who practices with Ben, Brian. They're all married, the first 4. Caitlin is a pastor. Patrick is a paramedic down in Suffolk, and Kelsey is a Fairfax County teacher. And like Father Bob said, we have 5 grandkids with 2 on the way.
Does anybody here have children that always want to kill each other? Like they're always fighting? You have that, right? when they get older, they love each other. Like, they'll actually turn out pretty good. I mean, they're pretty tight, have their own little Instagram group they don't let mom and dad see. But, you know, literally we thought sometimes that they wouldn't all survive the sibling rivalry when they were little. They love each other. Yeah.
Okay. So all of the kids that we adopted were considered special needs because they had a minor medical condition. But we've come to learn that their real special need was the fact that they did not live in a loving family from the beginning of their life. The first few months and years of children's lives are so important. In fact, I don't know if any of you have read the book What Happened to You by Oprah Winfrey and Dr. Bruce Perry. It talks about what happens to you in early life, how that affects you. The first 2 months of your life, if that is good and nurturing, if you cry, your mom picks you up, you cry, your mom picks you up, and you're taking care of the first 2 months of your life. The rest of your life can be terrible, but you'll still turn out pretty good and stable. If the first 2 months of your life, you cry, nobody comes, you cry, nobody comes, you're neglected, you're abused, and the rest of your life, everything is fine, you're going to be impaired more than the one that had 2 months good. What did I say? Yeah, 2 months good and the rest of their life. So the first 2 months are so important. If any young moms in here, I don't know if we have any young moms, all those times, the hundreds of times that you go and answer a baby that cries and rock them and look in their eyes makes a lifelong difference in their outcome. So we've learned that early trauma, neglect, abuse, abandonment changes the brain. Our kids, when they were younger, had no voice. They had no sense of felt safety, and they had no feelings of self-worth. Safe relationships can heal early trauma, but it takes a long time, and it's a lot of work. As Ben said, we thought we were good parents when we started out on this journey, but we had to learn a whole new parenting paradigm in order to parent these kids the way they needed to be parented. And that paradigm is called connected parenting. When we've spoken to moms groups before, we tell them we have no consequences. And they go, how do you do that? Well, you do that with the idea that kids, when they can behave, they do. When they can't because they're not regulated or they have a need that they're expressing through their behavior, they can't. And so to punish that just heaps shame on top of a child that's already out of control. And so basically the things that we've learned as we've parented our kids have helped develop better communication skills between us, because really they're the way we should be treating each other. They're a better way of parenting than the way we were brought up. Now our kids that were biological are neurotypical, and they did fine. I mean, they're resilient, they'll be okay. But, I mean, there was no, our children from hard places, the brain gets so worn out from having to be on such high alert so long that they immediately go to fight, flight, or freeze when any stress comes that they feel they can't control. So the first thing you have to do is be in relationship, build that relationship, a trusting relationship with them, and connect with them more than correcting them.
This has been really hard work, and Sandi is a really good expert on this. And so one of the things that in the beginning, when we began to adopt these children, and two of them lived in foster families in China, they developed differently, better than the two who lived in orphanages. Because when you're in orphanage, there's nobody there who loves you. There's nobody there to actually protect you. With Kevin, nobody came when he cried. He had a cleft lip palate. It was hard to feed him, right? And the nannies were outnumbered by literally roomfuls of infants. And it took us a long time to get this, right? Because it was all new to us. And so we would do things. I think the teaching point here is whenever in your life, whether it's work-related, your relationship with each other, your relationship with your children, and you're finding challenges, there's somebody in the world who's gone through that challenge before. And so, as Sandi worked very hard to find groups of parents who were raising kids from tough places and started to hear their stories, as she said. I remember one time we flew down to Nashville, Tennessee for a conference, and we were literally at wit's end. I mean, there was a time where, there were many times when we said to God, like, all right, this is really hard, all right? And we're not good enough. And so why? Like, why did you do that? And it was, I mean, it's hard. Sandi found this conference. We went down, we're in an auditorium, there's 300 families. In a half hour of listening to the stories and hearing stories of people who were farther along the path than we were, I went up to the stage and said to the speaker, thank you. Like, thank you, because you have just given us some hope. Right? Because we just didn't know what we didn't know. And it's not to frighten anyone who's thinking about adoption. It's a wonderful thing. I think we would both say that if you are going to adopt or foster, it's really helpful if the mom and the dad are on the same page and are willing to work hard. So that when one of you is exhausted, the other can say, go away, I will take care of this, all right? It really is a team. And it's an unfinished journey. It's a lot better today because Sandi, in large part, has been such a student of brain science. And so we've learned a couple things that I think have helped us communicate.
We have. So one thing that we learned was it's okay to go to bed mad, which goes against everything we've ever been taught, right? But you know, we're all alike. Just like the toddlers that flip their lid and you can't reason with them, the same thing happens with adults. And this is something that we've learned along the way. This is your brain. This is the amygdala. That's the thing that makes you...
Anybody know what the amygdala is? Remember from science?
You didn't know it before.
I did. You taught it to me. You taught me that thing, right?
Yeah.
I know what a
It's
hyperactive
the
amygdala
reptilian
is.
brain, the
Yeah.
thing that helps you survive by helping you fight, flight, or freeze. But when that's activated, your prefrontal cortex isn't. So your thinking brain, your logical brain, is not connected and online. So you can't have a logical conversation with somebody when their lid is flipped. We learned that with our kids. It took us a long time. We still like to talk to them when they're flipped, but it doesn't do any good. So we found that, I have found that if I wait overnight, he'll come to his senses by the next morning.
So, we were preparing earlier this afternoon, and within the last week, we had a fighting night, and we figured it out and fixed it in the morning. Like, we got to tell a story. What were we fighting about? Neither of us can remember. Right? But interesting. So, again, this happens in the work environment. It happens when you're talking to little kids, to teenagers. Like, you can't logic through someone who is escalated, right? As Father Bob said, I do a lot of refereeing, right? And things happen on soccer fields and people get escalated. And you can't just, the reasoning brain just goes away. And so the teaching point, you may find this with your own spouse or, the person you're engaged to, is like, sometimes you just stop talking and accept that you need to rest. You come home from work, you're exhausted. There's always tomorrow. And the danger of continuing a conversation or a fight when you're escalated is that you will say something. And words are more powerful than any muscle or weapon. And words last a long time. So it's okay. You can go to bed.
You have number 2.
I have number 2. Which one? Oh, this is so. Any Brene Brown fans here? Guys, we travel. We listen to Brene Brown podcast. So when you have stopped the fight at night, decided it's okay, we're just going to go to bed and sleep on different sides of the bed. It's all cool. We'll be good in the morning. The prompt for the next morning is this: the way because I hate going, oh man, I'm sorry, it's all my fault. God, could you say giving in sometimes? But the prompt is this. Is just, you say, when I hear you say this, the story I'm telling myself is this. So anybody you're having a discussion with, the error that humans make is that we will hear or see something done. We start to tell the story in our own heads that is actually meaner or more vicious than what the person meant to say. We do this I do this all. I am so, like, I can have 1,000 people screaming at me in a soccer game. Like, I'm cool with all that. Like, she looked at me the wrong way. I'm like, oh my God, you must think I'm a horrible person, right? Right? So it's just remembering, and now you can have a communication. See, now we can have a discussion when we're rested, and maybe the other learns, as I learned, like to express things differently, to not say things in the heat of the moment, because we all tell ourselves stories very quickly. How many can do, how many like been married a long time, you have an argument, you have kind of a standard argument over something. You know what each person's going to say the first 20 rounds, right? You just know this, right? You know how the night's going to end, right? That's telling yourself a story about what you have just heard. And so this is all about quieting your brain. It's all about, you married somebody that you love, right? You're in it, and you made this promise like for forever, right?
Right, okay.
Go.
The other principle that we've learned from is for our kids to connect with them before correcting them. And many times, I don't even correct them. I mean, I wait until 2 days later because, it just takes them that long to calm their brain. But as Ben said, you listen more than you talk, and you empathize and acknowledge their feelings before trying to fix it. You may not even just try to fix it. You may just say, oh gosh, that must be so hard to feel that way. And I know for myself, my mom I love my mom, but she used to always minimize everything I said, like, oh, it can't be that bad, or they can't be that mean, and I find myself doing the same thing with my girls, and really and then they argue with you. It's just easier to say, that must be so hard to have that happen, right?
It's a very disarming
Yeah.
thing. Yeah, so... So when you're middle school girls, right, they're really hard. I mean, social media, talk in the hallway, everything is very real, very serious for them, right? And they'll tell you that story, you're like, no, that's not a problem at all. That's not what gets you to connection. Connection is, you don't have to agree that their feeling is true or accurate, but you have to acknowledge that for them, that feeling is very real. And this really leads to our next point, which is, if you're a fan of Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Successful People, his first habit is to be proactive. And many people think proactive is like go and do something first before I'm asked to do it. And that's not really what he's talking about. He's talking about owning the space between the stimulus and the response. Because we as human beings, we want to win the argument. We want to get the last word in. We want to convince the other person that they are wrong. And if we can, whatever it is the other says, does, whatever happens, can own that space. All the magic is in the space before you engage and open your mouth again. One of the things I told my daughter when she was getting married and give a little speech at the wedding. I said, sometimes just stop talking, because what happens in an argument is you escalate. And sometimes I'll watch Sandi and one of my daughters in particular, they each want to get the winning word in. And I said, you gotta disengage, Sandi. You gotta just step back. But it takes your rational brain, your unemotional brain, and your courage, especially dealing with your child who's being flippant sometimes, or disrespectful, but you're the adult in the room. Like, just, okay. They don't really know what to do with silence, right? I remember one time,
It's irritating.
it is irritating. I remember one time, Emma, we were having this tussle, because, we have a schedule, whose turn to do the dishes, and one of my daughters, Emma, who won't name, but Emma, she's like, I'm not doing the dishes tonight, I'm not doing them. No, you always make it. I said to her, now, old Ben would go, yes you are, or there's going to be consequences. You are going to be grounded, or something, which, they know, yeah, it wouldn't happen, actually. But my response was, Emma, okay, you can decide to not do the dishes. I turned to walk away. She didn't know what to do with that, right? Because now she's telling herself stories, oh my gosh, what is going to happen to me? And she does. And really, I come back a little while later, the kitchen is perfect, right? Not because we had a fight and I put my big heavy hand down and said, blah, 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 here's all the rules, and you gotta do this or this or this or this, and you have a schedule and all this. You can decide. You can decide to not do the dishes. And just walk away from it.
Okay,
Got another?
got another.
And what? We have all time for questions.
To look beyond the behavior to see the need or the cause for the behavior. For our kids from hard places, behavior is how they express themselves, and you always have to ask yourself what the need is. It might be that they're hungry, it might be that they're tired. Children from hard places don't know when they're hungry, tired, or even thirsty. Or it might be that they're afraid. And then how can I meet that need? You could do that with your spouse too. When they come home from work grumpy, instead of saying, like I used to say, what's the matter with you? Why are you in such a bad mood?
I had to work all day with these kids. You don't know what my day's been like.
And, we believe, and I think it's true, that children want to behave. That's their ultimate goal, is to behave. When they can, they do. When they can't, they don't. And then our goal, our purpose is to find out why they can't.
Yeah, we learned this especially with some of our adopted children, where the outer limit of what we would allow to be going on in an evening was their safety, right? And literally, if I can say in a church, like all hell breaking loose inside the house, like that has happened. And again, with our black border being, I need to keep you physically safe, and so I will exert force to keep you physically safe, because by this time their amygdala is boom. It's the only thing working in the brain. And so when you do this over and over and over again, your children teaching us just how to have a calmer response to each other. Because here's the deal. Life is this one-way journey. We had no control over when we were born, who we were born to, or into what circumstances we were born. We may have some control over how many years do we get out of the whole deal, right? If we go to CrossFit, a lot, 5 days a week he was at CrossFit this week, right? That's a marker for being around for a long time. And I think that what God wants each one of us to do is to maximize whatever gifts and interests you have. He gave each one of you a story. He gave each one of you things that you're good at. And each one of you, hopefully he's given you kind of the courage to tell that story. And so when we're able to realize, hey, we're in Northern Virginia, everything goes 120 miles an hour, and every kid needs a private coach, at 6, and a tutor, and all this stuff. We just backed away from all of that. And our kids they played travel sports, they were in, some of them in GT. We never said, you gotta go to college, or you gotta go to this college, or you gotta go to study this thing, or even your homework. Again, not really our job. So we turned into more relaxed parents, I think, which at the end of the day, the family is pretty healthy, right? They'll always need you. It doesn't matter. 40-year-olds, they still have questions. You'll always be there. You'll always be their parent. But it really, I think, has helped us to get through times when we're exhausted. Something comes up, one of us says something, does something that irritates the other, right? We're able to recover from that now, I think, a lot faster. And we're able to recover without doing irreparable damage to our relationship by saying something that we really, really, really are going to regret the next day. Like, what do you want to correct on that one? Like later tonight, it'll be like, you said this, and we're good. You have any more cards?
No, I don't, but you did, but
What was one?
What was it? Remember, it was the unword? Basically, I think our children have taught us that it boils down to unconditional love. And unconditional love means unconditional. It means you don't have to live up to any kind of a standard in order to be loved. And we have to teach that to our children from hard places because they didn't get it from the time they were born. And it reminds me of God's love for us. God gives us immeasurable grace because we all mess up all the time. And it's been a journey that way.
Absolutely. And I have one more, then we'll take some questions. If I can remember what I was using. Yes. Based on what our older children have come back to tell us as they went off to college and went off into the world, and what they viewed other families, and kiddos that they were in school with, I think we all need to be reminded that what the most profound influence that you will have over your children is they're watching what you do. How do you treat each other? How do you treat the person at the coffee shop who messes up your order? Right? It doesn't matter. You can send them to school, you can lecture them, you can give them all the books, all the rules for a living, and then when you flip your lid out there in the world, they learn from that. The other thing, I think the last thing, I'll stop, is I think the most important thing is we made it we put a very, very high priority on breakfast and dinner together. No phones, no cell phones, right? Yes, it was hard, because sometimes I was coaching 2 or 3 teams and the kids are playing, but most of the time, through our married life and raising kids, dinner in our kitchen, no cell phones, having discussions. Who's got questions? Yes, sir.
Did you ever find that any of your natural children resented perhaps some of the differences in how the adopted were raised, or were they old enough and separated enough in age that was not a factor?
What? Well, first I will say
Good question.
that during the times that things were really hard in our house, it was really hard for our bio kids and for our adopted kids that had been there before. It's just hard, and it really creates secondary trauma. I think in the long run that made us a stronger family. We raised the children that were in the house, we treated them all pretty much the same. Although I would say to them when they complained, we give each child what they need. And so that was our answer. Our older kids, my much older son, the one that's 39, he talks about this being 2020 Sandy. It's like, it's different.
Didn't let us do that when we were little.
There's no doubt. I'm a different parent now than when he was a young child. I think I'm a better parent now. I wish I had known we went to all sorts of parenting classes back then, trying to get the 2 of them to stop fighting, the 2 that were closest
The first
together.
2, yeah.
The first 2, yeah. So now when I see his son doing the same thing, I'm like, serves you right. But
Yeah, I think it's not resentment, but there were times when we were giving 125% of our time and efforts and exhaustion to 1 or to 2 at the same time, and that was hard. And there were times where in the house where it was, we keep using euphemisms, it was really hard. Honest to God, it was at times violent, safe, and not as hard, I think, as some other stories that we heard. And there was secondary trauma. We have the biggest team of mental health professionals and coaches. We each have like a mindset coach that we work with, and we've got a whole bunch.
I think everybody needs a therapist, that's my
Yeah.
opinion now. I mean, when we first called looking for therapists, it was like, ooh, but I just think that they're just helpful.
And that was hard too, like finding the right mental health team to help your family. It didn't matter how many letters they had after their names. Most were not a good fit for us, and that took a lot of
It
effort
did take
and false
effort.
steps.
And I'll tell you one thing that we didn't mention in the talk, one thing that really saved our family was animals, horses in particular, and then we started fostering dogs, and that was a huge, huge help to our children in their healing.
We fostered 60 dogs the last few years. And so you all very generously offered a stipend to us to come here. We've taken that money and it's going to Northern Virginia Therapeutic Riding Center down in Clifton, which has been wonderful. Equine therapy, when there was a time, I mean, third time we said we were at wit's end, right? We were at wit's end, and you found equine
Well,
therapy.
I think God led us, you know.
Yeah.
We found the therapist that we needed to have. Yeah.
I have on the table the Live Life Big Journal. It's just something I give out to people. It's highlights from a journal I've written, and it just has I think motivational, encouraging things that I give it to clients and to lawyers. Success for Teens is an out-of-print book. When we found out the company was going out of business, we bought like boxes and boxes and boxes. It's a very cool book. So if you have teenagers, it's from the editors of the Success Foundation. It's cool, and they're free. And you can have.
Is it for the teens to read or us to read it?
Teens have a hard time reading this sort of stuff, but it would be a great discussion. It's the things we talk about. It's being proactive. It's owning the space between the insult and the reply. It's about making lists and being successful and realizing that you are unique and you are special and you are beautiful. And just because someone else is going off to some out-of-state triple the X tuition school and you have to go to Virginia doesn't mean that they're going to end up in life any more successful than you are. That's we can go home through the whole education thing. I mean, I went to a law school that was just opened, and been doing a career that I believe that, Virginia, we're so lucky. Every school has been the right school for the right kid. Some of my kids are doing things they never learned in school. It's like, all right, I do not understand why people pay 3x to go to school out of state for an 18-year-old. I just don't. Yes, ma'am.
I have a question about the situation with your daughter and the dishes.
Yes.
What if she chose not to do the dishes?
I don't know. So the question is, when I walked away and said you can choose to not do the dishes, I don't really think that's.
It hasn't happened. I mean, I think that the part of it is building the relationship with your child that makes them want to do what you've asked them to do. I mean, that is where we started with our kids, spending time with them every day. I mean, the parameters were such that there was no way I could spend as much time with each child as they suggested, but 10 minutes a night, this is your time, I'm here. Even if you don't want me here, I'll sit outside the door. So it's the relationship, I think, that makes that work.
I probably would have piled them up because I know there would be an ask within the next 48 hours for something, and I would go, just like point to the dishes.
You would have just done them.
I might have, yeah, certainly now, yeah, for sure. Yes, sir.
You have 4 different adopted kids. Did you ever get the question from them, their upbringing, and how were you able to tell them their story?
That's great.
It is a good question. It's different for each child and each country. And in China, you don't get much information at all. And we have found out some information by following tracks of people. Well, I'll give you one example. One daughter, it told who found her. And when we were back on a trip to do a medical mission in China, my son and I went with our guide to follow up to see if we could find this person, and we found this person. And she told us more of my daughter's story. And when my daughter found out the story, what I thought was going to upset her was not what upset her. So each child is different. We have one that doesn't want to have anything to do with, she's American now, she doesn't want to find she's not Chinese, that doesn't matter. I have one that would like to know more, I think, but I mean, so basically I don't have any problem with telling them what I know, but I don't know very much.
Two of them have been back. Sandi actually helped open healing. We work with a wonderful organization called Love Without Boundaries, which helps impoverished kids all around the world, but started in China. And so two of the kids have been back to visit the villages and home areas. And our David, his foster parents, are still alive and communicates with them every so often. It's Chinese New Year now, so they connect. I think Leah spoke to her nannies the other night.
Yeah, Leah. She's gone back and she has happy memories. She has some terrible memories from this other orphanage, but so whatever they want to find out, we have tried to help them find out. Now, of course, you can't really travel to China now because of COVID and because of the political situation for now. But
and the children who had special needs like cleft lip and palate. You just never know. In many cases, these children were left near police stations because the parents were so poor that they would not be able to afford the special bottles and the things to do to feed them. In some cases, you have the one-child policy and boys were valued over girls. And you have, the medical needs are that our children have two cleft lip and palate, one missing an ear, one missing some digits on her fingers, on her hand. Which is, we always say not a big deal. We live in America, we live in Northern Virginia, we have access to all sorts of medical resources. It's a big deal in China, right?
There's also the stigma issue that's a big part of
exactly. Yeah.
China.
Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
That's a good question. I think it's, for me, it seems like it's intuitive. Our daughter that had the most severe behavioral issues happened to be a very good advocate for herself. So I let her do all the talking because she knew better than I what she needed in school. Our son that's on the spectrum and has learning disabilities and stuff, he still needs us to advocate. He's now advocating for himself to us. But I mean, that's a good question because he got a job recently and it was an 8-hour shift and it was that's a long time to be watching dogs. And so several weekends in a row he said, the hours are just so long, I'm gonna have to find another job. So I did reach out to the person and said, could he work half shifts? And thankfully, they said, yeah, sure, no problem. And now he's happy as a lark. So, maybe next time I'll have him do it, but baby steps, I think. Yeah.
I would say also, Sandi is so when you have a child with special needs in Fairfax County or public schools, there's all these resources, and nobody knows how they work, or in what order, or that all of them exist. You have, for folks who English may be second language, and maybe can't, like at one point we hired an educational consultant to help teach us that. We go advocate. So Sandi's good at that. There's a ton of resources out there, and I guess I would say, as the observer of Mama Bear talking to these school administrators, it's like, no, darn it, like we are going to push because I know my child. And I know what he or she needs, and we're just going to keep pushing. We're not going to be jerks about it, but we're not going away.
No, but sometimes I've been wrong about that with one of our children. They said, "Oh, that's not our school model. It can't be in a small enclosed classroom for all the subjects." And I'm like, "What do you mean it can't be? What do you mean it's not your model?" But I went to see the school that they were recommending, and it was the answer to prayer. So I think you have to, educate yourself. find the best.
And
setting.
that is hard. It is hard. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I think you said your biological children were older than your youngest biological children.
Our biological children are older than our
There's mixed. The
than
order
our
is not
adopted
mixed.
kids.
Yeah.
Is that right? The adopted kids are older?
We adopted out of birth order.
Yes, okay,
Yeah.
so yes. So
Yeah.
is there any issue with the younger children, your younger birth children, recognizing that now older kids come into your family?
Not, well, I would say Matthew would be our younger birth child, that he was the one who, and he was excited at first, you know, I mean, we adopted in birth order first two, and then felt called to older children, and so then we adopted the two older than him, and he was excited to have a brother. Of course, you know, they're good friends now, but they didn't mesh to begin with, but
Not always, but Matt has been a very good
it's been very.
brother, absolutely. So yeah, I mean, you know, when you go into this world, like you don't know what you don't know, and this is why it's important as best you can, like, to calm your own brain and realize that the world is big, the resources are out there. And then getting connected with other parents who are on the journey. Because when we went the trip down to Nashville, I'm like, oh my God, this is beautiful for me to see that we weren't the only ones who had these struggles. And now, part of our calling, I think, our mission, is to mentor to younger parents who are either on the foster or the adoption journey, or just younger parents in general. And we were down a couple of weeks ago, and it was amazing to me. They're telling the same stories in their own houses of things that we experienced. And Sam was able to go, all right, here's a couple things to think about, right?
I will say, our adopted kids, I don't know, you've heard the term, they're much younger than their chronological age. So, you know, bringing them in, they didn't try to act like a big brother and sister to our bio kid. They're still, I mean, they're great kids, but they're young because they had a lot of catching up to do.
Any other questions? Awesome. Well, this has been fun for us. We're actually, I told Father Bob, we're having some renovations in our house, so we're actually living in a hotel. Our older kids are home living in the basement. They thought that was cool. We didn't. So at least for a night, probably a couple nights here, we're at a hotel where it's finally quiet. But I would say this. Truly, if you or anyone you know is ever thinking about the adoption process, or has adopted, or foster care, or is in that and is struggling, Sandi and I, and more Sandi than me, are a good resource of resources to help you or this person who you're referring to us, like, quiet their brain, to know that there is hope, to know that there are people out there on the journey. And we have found that the adoption community is, by and large, very willing to share their experiences. We're lucky we're in Northern Virginia. It's, you know, there's probably 40 languages spoken at Robinson, and some of our friends are raising kids from other countries, like in Oklahoma, right? And it's really hard. And I would say, my ask as a church would be that when these children come into your community and they're wiggly and they're noisy and they are, you know, not like your neurotypical second grader sitting in the pew, that you have the grace to say, we'd like to meet you where you are, right? It's okay. This is one thing that our church, Abiding Presence, has done really good at, is to say, we're a place that welcomes everybody, and we get it, and we're walking this journey together. Same thing when you see that kiddo in the grocery store who's acting out, and the instinct is to say, well, that mom's not disciplining them, right? You don't know their story. You don't know what mom has gone through and what kiddo has gone through. So have some grace, quiet your own mind, offer to help. That's how we make the world better. One by one, forming relationships, and you being the one who inspires that person that you don't know to have a happier day. It's we've sort of adopted this Live Life big brand. which is it's a one-way journey. Let's enjoy it. And if I can help you, lift you up, and I'll turn the time so someone else is going to help me lift me up when I'm in a challenging place. That's how we as individuals make the world better. Thank you very much. Everyone, you know what? Soccer fans, can you imagine, like, earlier this week, the United States against Jamaica, it's 30 degrees colder than it is outside right now. Can you imagine that? That's unbelievable. Thank you all for coming.
Ben and Sandi, thank you so much. And on behalf of Nativity Catholic Church and the Marriage Enrichment Ministry, we have a bouquet of flowers for you. And when you said one of you likes red wine, the other likes white, you're going home with both, one of each. Going home to the hotel with flowers and wine. Date night. So when Sandi and Ben arrived, I also asked for them to each pick a number. So Sandi picked number 9. So it's Peter and Francis Hahn here. I have a gift for you. The bottle of wine has a heart on it, and a box of chocolates to continue your date night. And Ben picked number 40. Is Joe and Beatrice Tiago here? Oh! So this is a beer. So this is a beer tasting glasses, but you know you can also do wine tasting with it. But I filled it up with chocolate. So you're welcome. So I wanted to share February 14th, as we all know, is St. Valentine's Day, but from February 7th until the 14th is National Marriage Week. So we will also be celebrating and keeping everyone in our prayers during that week. If you did not receive a prayer card on your way in, please take one on your way out. We have more left over. We have enough for each couple to at least have one. But if you would both like to have one, a prayer card, because you're both praying for each other and with each other, please take another one. The prayer thanks God for the gift of family and asks God that families will be a witness to the love of Christ. Our next date night will be in May, so we look forward to having you come back in May for that. And between now and then, we will also have a 4-week marriage enrichment program. We're also going to be having a marriage mini retreat that we hope you can come to. So there's something for everyone. And then we're also going to do a frozen yogurt fellowship at Sweet Frog after Easter. So no. So we have a lot of wonderful events coming up. And if you are not on our flock note, you can let me know, and I'll make sure to add you to it. It has all our upcoming events and save the dates on there. We also have a Facebook page too, so that you can follow. So without further ado, I'm going to have Father Bob come back up, and he's going to have some closing remarks and a final blessing.
Well, thanks, Ben and Sandi, for sacrificing your evening to be with us tonight. And those 4 hours of preparation that went into it, you know. Yeah, that's right. This is just the beginning of the date night. But, you know, the world is gathered in Beijing right now. But through your story, you brought Beijing to us, and your precious children. And so just thinking of that, and also, you know, Ben's an attorney. And I think of the scripture, Jesus says, I will not leave you orphaned. I will send my spirit upon you to be your friend, your counselor, and your advocate. And I like that word advocate because the Spirit is our defense attorney. Like God always saying, I defend you. I stand by you. And not only in your practice, but in your marriage, you both are advocates and defenders of life and these precious children that you've welcomed into your home. The biological children, but your adopted children too, who you've made your own. And by that, you've really advocated for them. But through your story, advocating for so many others to also not be afraid and welcoming children. And, we love our children. They're precious. We'll do everything for them. So thanks for just sharing your wisdom tonight and all that you have learned. And may God continue to bless you and your children and grandchildren and the ones on the way too. So precious. Thanks everyone for coming tonight. It was great questions and great dialogue and sharing tonight. So may God just bless us and this evening and fill our hearts with peace. And as we continue on our date nights, continue to give us strength and encouragement and use us as his instruments of encouragement and hope and to be a light for others. May Almighty God bless you all. The Father, Son, and Holy Spirit remain with you forever. Amen. Amen. All right. Great date night. Thank you.